Jamie Oliver wasn't just a chef. He was a movement, a television icon, a best-selling author, a cultural reformer. His name filled 42 restaurants across the United Kingdom, inspired millions, and promised food everyone could trust. And yet his entire restaurant empire collapsed almost overnight. How does Britain's most trusted food crusader go from global success to sudden disaster? The answer starts with the promise that convinced a nation to believe. Jamie Oliver's name became shorthand for trust in food. His face was everywhere, on supermarket shelves, on cooking shows watched by millions, on the covers of books stacked in homes across the world. He lobbied Parliament and changed what children ate in schools. Restaurants carried his signature from London to Dubai, each one promising something better than the last. Families booked tables months in advance, believing they were part of a movement, not just a meal. Investors lined up, drawn by the promise of a brand that stood for honesty and heart. Staff wore his values like a badge, proud to belong to something bigger than business. For years, every headline seemed to say the same thing: Jamie Oliver could do no wrong. But behind the glow of the spotlight, something was quietly unraveling. The empire, built on a promise of better food for everyone, would soon face a reality no one wanted to believe. When Jamie's Italian opened its doors in 2008, the promise was clear: honest food made from scratch and served without pretense. The menu leaned on fresh pasta, responsibly sourced meat, and ingredients that spoke of care, not shortcuts. Prices sat in the sweet spot, not so high that families felt shut out, and not so low that quality was sacrificed. The brand's mission was everywhere, from the way staff greeted guests to the language on the napkins. Jamie Oliver's own reputation for transparency and warmth coloured every detail. Early diners described feeling like they were part of a cause, not just customers. Headlines called it recession-proof, a cash cow, and investors saw a rare blend of ethics and profit. Staff joined for more than a paycheck. They believed in changing the high street, one plate at a time. For a while, it worked. The dream felt real, and the doors stayed busy. But a promise that big carries its own weight. Within a few years, Jamie Oliver's restaurant group was everywhere. In city centres across Britain, bold signage and packed dining rooms made it hard to ignore. By its peak, there were 42 Jamie's Italian locations in Britain alone, each one designed for volume, not intimacy. The ambition did not stop at the border. 61 international franchises carried the brand into airports, shopping districts, and tourist hotspots from Dubai to Sydney. New concepts joined the roster: Barbacoa for barbecue, Union Jacks for pizza, and 15 for social impact, each adding to the operational load. Headlines praised the empire's reach and energy. Investors saw rising revenue and a brand that seemed unstoppable. But every new site meant more staff to train, more supply chains to manage, and more rent to pay. The empire grew fast, but it grew heavy. What looked like momentum from the outside was, inside, becoming a balancing act that demanded constant attention. Most restaurant chains, no matter how famous the name above the door, run on margins that barely scrape by. Industry averages hover between 3 and 6% profit, leaving little room for error. Jamie Oliver's empire chose large, high-profile locations, prime city addresses with rents that climbed year after year. Each restaurant needed a steady stream of full tables just to keep the lights on. Fixed costs like rent and wages do not shrink when customer numbers dip. The commitment to fresh, ethically sourced ingredients meant food bills stayed high, even as economic pressures mounted across the UK. After 2016, business rates and import costs rose sharply, especially as the pound weakened. At the same time, the group leaned on short-term fixes like discount vouchers, which filled seats but cut into already thin profits. The math became relentless. Even a small drop in sales could erase months of hard work. In a business built on ideals, the numbers refused to bend. At the heart of Jamie's empire was a belief that felt unbreakable. If people love Jamie Oliver, they will always show up. That idea became an invisible shield, protecting the business from doubts that haunted other restaurant chains. Every new opening, every glossy menu, every campaign leaned on the power of the brand to fill seats and to silence warning signs. The assumption ran deep. Fame would outlast fads, and trust in Jamie's name would override any stumble in the kitchen or slip in service. But the restaurant world does not run on goodwill alone. As the group expanded, operational discipline faded. Decisions that should have been grounded in numbers were replaced by confidence in the brand's reach. Even as reviews cooled and costs climbed, the core strategy stayed the same: double down on the Jamie Oliver name. When controversy struck, like the Shell partnership that drew accusations of hypocrisy, the mantra held firm. Passion became a liability, shielding the business from hard truths and letting comfort set in where scrutiny was needed. By 2017, quiet warnings began surfacing on the high street. Online reviews, once glowing, started to turn lukewarm. Diners complained about smaller portions and rising prices. Some noticed that the once vibrant atmosphere felt more standardized, the personal touch slipping away. Critics too sharpened their pens. One described the truffle pasta as tasting of mouse poos, while others called the food forgettable. To keep tables full, the group leaned heavily on discount vouchers, but the short-term spikes in traffic only deepened the sense of decline. Regular customers grew wary, questioning whether the experience was still worth the cost. Staff on the floor felt the change in energy, fielding more complaints and watching familiar faces stop coming back. The first real shock came with the closure of 6 Jamie's Italian sites in early 2017, putting 120 jobs at risk. These weren't isolated blips. They were early signals, easy to ignore, but impossible to dismiss for those paying close attention. In early 2018, Jamie Oliver's restaurant group struck a deal with creditors to keep the lights on, but the numbers refused to cooperate. Management added new concepts and layers, hoping scale would bring relief, yet every move only deepened the strain. By May 2019, the group entered administration. 22 restaurants closed overnight. Around 1,000 people lost their jobs. The empire that once promised better food for everyone vanished from the high street in a single week. From this point on, growth no longer meant strength. It meant only weight, dragging the business past the point of rescue. Jamie Oliver didn't walk away when the numbers turned bleak. As losses mounted, he poured over £12 million of his own savings into the business, trying to keep the doors open and staff paid. In 2018, he faced a deadline with just hours to act, transferring personal funds to stave off immediate collapse. Staff remember his refusal to abandon them, even as the outlook darkened. The pressure took a toll. Oliver later spoke openly about exhaustion and heartbreak, calling the experience one of the hardest of his life. This wasn't indifference, it was attachment, an unwillingness to let go, even as the empire slipped away. Restaurants don't survive on heart alone, they survive on ruthless efficiency and early unpopular decisions. Jamie Oliver's story is a chain reaction, not a single misstep. A brand built on trust, expansion powered by hope, early warnings overlooked, and emotion steering the wheel when structure was needed most. In the aftermath, the Jamie Oliver name did not vanish. Selective relaunches followed, first at Theatre Royal Drury Lane in 2023, then new sites abroad, each one smaller and more cautious, shaped by lessons learned the hard way. The man continues with books, shows, and a global brand. The empire as it once stood is gone, but its lesson endures. Even the brightest vision must answer to the numbers. In the end, survival belongs to those who adapt before the world forces their hand. Celebrity alone cannot balance the books. Today, hundreds of UK restaurants close each year, even as food culture thrives online. The gap between brand and business grows wider, and no reputation is immune. In hospitality, heart inspires, but only discipline endures. What do you think? Share your thoughts below.